May the viewer experience quantum leaps in their financial abundance via healthy, joyful, sustainable ways. May the viewer experience quantum leaps in their financial abundance via healthy, joyful, sustainable ways. Okay, welcome. What I just did was, or is, a gridding technique that I recently learned from a woman that I buy crystals and decks from. And so the premise is that these crystals put in this arrangement where there's one crystal in the middle and all the crystals outside of it are connected. They can be essentially energetically coded to hold your intentions. And that's what the pendulum is is supposedly representing. And it's been wild over the last few weeks since I've learned this technique to do this practice over and over and have what you experience be the case for me, which is when the crystals, when the grid is not coded with an intention, the pendulum stays relatively still. And then when the crystals are coded with an intention, it starts to move. And so I think it's just wild. I wanted to offer it to you as a practice and also as a visual, as a gift, as we do this abundance goddess Lakshmi reading, in case it's helpful, in case you find it uplifting, in case it is a practice that resonates, that you feel is helpful. So with that said, we are doing an abundance goddess Lakshmi reading. And so what that means is that we are going to read from this Master Ascensions Light Code deck about goddess Lakshmi and the abundance light code. And then what I'm pulling here from the tarot is advice from spirit about how to step more into the vein of abundance at the time that you find this reading. Now, I will say a couple things. One is I did an abundance or a goddess Lakshmi abundance reading a while back, I think like over a year ago, but I didn't have this deck yet. So I used the Lakshmi cards from different decks that I have. But if you feel like you're intrigued and want to keep going with this Lakshmi energy, I will link that reading up in the description box of this video. And also, I wanted to mention, and I'm not an affiliate of this in any way, I do just really appreciate Kelly Kaladny's work. She's the author of this deck, and she is the a channel of Archangel Raphael, and she is doing an abundance light code series in January of 2025. And if you're watching this after that, I know that you can eventually get replays. So I will link up her YouTube channel and her website to the description box of this video, because I feel like there might be some, if all of this is resonating, there might be something powerful in you checking out her work, specifically her light code work on the goddess Lakshmi. Okay, so with that said, we are going to read about the abundance code, but before we do, I wanted to let you know that the Eight of Pentacles came out in reverse, Queen of Cups upright, Death upright, Five of Swords upright. Five of Swords came up first, Three of Swords in reverse at the bottom of the deck. And then we're going to get some clarifiers here from our small everyday tarot deck. But first, let's read about this abundance card, and then we'll get the other cards set up, okay? All right. Abundance. Open to receive. The abundance card gently cradles your heart, embracing you with the endless abundance that envelopes your life, even when it seems distant or intangible. Through loving encouragement, it prompts you to expand your energetic field and welcome the bountiful blessings that eagerly await your embrace. Shadows cast by feelings of unworthiness or self-doubt may appear, yet the luminous light of abundance shines persistently, beckoning you to accept it wholeheartedly. Bathed in the divine energy of goddess Lakshmi, this card entices you to treasure the sacred key to abundance, gratitude. Like the vivid hues of a magnificent Indian sunrise, Lakshmi's essence dazzles your senses, immersing you in a kaleidoscope of vivid colors, rich tastes, and enchanting fragrances that awaken your heart to boundless opportunities. When this card graces your path, it tenderly rouses you from slumber, urging you to awaken and be present. Bask in gratitude for the abundance already surrounding you, for it is the key to unlocking even greater treasures. This card may also invite you to reflect on your relationship with money and the energy it embodies. Release negative beliefs and attitudes that might obstruct your ability to attract abundance. Embrace appreciation and gratitude for the money you possess, using it consciously and with love. Drawing this card signifies that you may have been in a state of restriction. The card itself serves as a celestial beacon, signaling that abundance is ready to flow into your experience, hopefully in a steady way, right? If you only open your heart to receive. Trust that the universe conspires in your favor, and as you welcome abundance as a cherished companion, it will lovingly manifest in your life. In your actions, remember to infuse each moment with love, cherishing your body and those around you. For it is love, forgiveness, and gratitude that holds the key to ascension and alignment with the frequency of limitless abundance. Embrace these sacred principles, and you will open yourself to the harmonious flow of abundance in all aspects of your existence. Remember, abundance is deeply intertwined with self-worth, for your chalice can only hold the abundance you genuinely feel you deserve. When you shift your mindset from I have to pay my bills to I get to pay my bills, the universe responds. For example, transform I have to pay my energy bill, it is so expensive, to I get to pay my energy bill and I am so grateful to have access to electricity, which enhances my life. Lakshmi graces us with her loving presence, reminding us that abundance is everywhere we look, if only we can see the lotus blooming from the mud. Symbolism. The artwork depicted, find it for you here. The artwork depicts Goddess Lakshmi of prosperity seated on a lotus flower, bestowing us with the gifts of her abundant light. This radiant light fills our solar plexus with the ability to manifest our soul's purpose. She comes forth on the lotus seat, symbolizing beauty and purity. The lotus stem crowns her form like the energetic umbilical cord connecting heaven and earth, and is inscribed with the galactic light language as if invocations of her 108 names and qualities in universal light. She wafts out of an ocean of milk, which was churned by the gods and the demons as they quested to obtain soma, the nectar of immortality, which the goddess is known to bestow. The horn of plenty of inexhaustible gifts and celebrations comes down from the 0 point of the Sari Yatra. And my apologies for that mispronunciation. I'm assuming it's mispronounced. My apologies. So it comes down from a 0 point, the galactic central spiral, pouring abundance into our solar plexus. Gold and currency rain down from the palms of our hands and from the horn of plenty into the hands of humbled recipients below. This gold and currency depict far more than mere material wealth, as they expand our spiritual wealth as well. Her 2 white elephants and twin swans symbolize the 4 goals of life, including truth and conscious living, which is known as Dharma. Life fulfillment by the security of material comforts, the pursuit of pleasure and sense of enjoyment, bringing delight into a life well lived, kama, and finally, liberation through self-realization. We also see the symbol of the Eye of Horus, deconstructed into its elements, representing each of our 5 sense organs and also our 6th sense, with which we experience Maya or illusion, which is also her creation. The honeycomb lattice is yet another sacred structure composed of hexagons held together. I just want you to see a little closer. So beautiful, isn't it? Okay, the honeycomb lattice is yet another structure composed of hexagons held together in strength and efficiency. These may also be seen to depict the very cells of our human body, which the goddess infuses with her honey nectar of immortality. The sense, pleasures of scent, of taste and sight, sound and touch are all activated on meditating upon the honeycomb and the bees that construct the sacred structure. The hummingbirds bring us frequencies of good luck and fortune, and also remind us of the importance of a lightness of being and the enjoyment of life. Wow. That is so beautiful. So once again, the cards that came out here in the tarot, the intention I set for them was to be advice for you, for the viewer, for you, at the time you find this video, of how to step more into true abundance, how to step more into the realm of abundance. And so let's get a clarifier here for each, and then we'll decode the messages, shall we? So a clarifier, please, for the Five of Swords upright. That was the first one, if you remember, that came out. I think as we're shuffling here, the main thing that's coming out here is, you know, in terms of what the card is telling me, is a willingness to look at dynamics that are not working. Okay, and so what does that mean? Well, I recently discovered a woman on Instagram, and I'll link up her Instagram account in the description box of this video. She debriefs spiritual truths and healing truths in a very straightforward, beautiful way. And she said something that really struck me. She said, like, essentially somebody was asking, like, how do you know if a, oh wow, Nine of Swords in reverse is clarifying that. She said, how do you know if dynamics are dysfunctional? Or somebody was asking that. And her response was, anytime people are not getting their needs met in a straightforward way, that's going to create dysfunctional dynamics. And I think I had never heard somebody put it so beautifully simply. And it's really, really stuck with me. And so I think there's something here with that. Essentially looking at where you're not getting your needs met in a straightforward way, where somebody else that you're in relationship with, where they're not getting their needs met in a straightforward way, and where it's causing interesting or dysfunctional dynamics. Because if you've watched my videos before, you know that I've been on a long healing journey of coming to realize that in terms of manifestation, nothing trumps relationship dynamics. And why is that? That's because in relationship, we are telling the universe via our actions how we're willing to exchange energy, right? So we can do affirmations until we're blue in the face, but if we're still willing to exchange our energy in ways that are not functional, those affirmations can't trump the dysfunctional dynamic, so to speak. So I think that's really powerful. And as I'm saying all this, I remember a couple readings that I did, and I believe it was even with this deck, and I think the main messages had to do with the manifestation card, and it had to do with like releasing outdated relationship contracts. And that doesn't necessarily mean like actual contracts, although it could, but it means more like energetic spiritual contracts, and how that was key to manifesting what you really wanted. So I will look back on those readings that I did, and I will link anything that relates to this deck in / the abundance relating to relationship dynamics, because I feel like I even had one that was titled something along those lines, like clean up your relationships and make more money or something like that. I'll link those up in the description box of this video in case this is resonating, you want to go along with this, or want to kind of go down the rabbit hole in a good way with this energy. So the card that came out to clarify death was the Seven of Pentacles in reverse. The card that came out right now to clarify Queen of Cups is the Four of Cups in reverse. Okay, so one more. Eight of Pentacles in reverse. Please clarify that for the viewer. So once again, we're getting advice here for you at the time you find this video about how to step more into the vein of abundance. And I think there's a really cohesive message coming out. We debriefed a little bit about the Five of Swords. I mean, I think with the Nine of Swords in reverse, clarifying that, I think what that's saying is really these dynamics are what is actually keeping you up at night. So in other words, like maybe you're coming to this reading and you have a lot of money. Maybe you're coming to this reading and you're really struggling financially. Regardless, the problems that you're experiencing at the root, they seem to have something to do with dysfunctional dynamics, and cleaning that up, a willingness to look at that is going to be what helps alleviate the worry, the anxiety, the vicious cycles, helping you step more naturally into the realm of abundance. Okay, one final card here, please, for the viewer, clarifying the Eight of Pentacles in reverse. There it is, the Tower in reverse. Okay. Bottom of the deck is the Two of Wands. Okay, so give me a second to get these cards set up. Okay, let's get into the story of these cards, shall we? So we talked a lot about the Five of Swords and then Nine of Swords in reverse already. I'd like to move next to Death and the Seven of Pentacles in reverse, clarifying it. So it seems like, and the Death card is nothing to fear. Although there are times it can be uncomfortable, it also is, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful cards in the deck, because it really signifies this willingness to complete cycles and become anew. I think, I mean, as cliche as it sounds, I think of the like caterpillar butterfly situation where I was gonna say metaphor, but it's not actually a metaphor. It actually happens, right? But I think there was one point in my journey where I didn't realize that the caterpillar in the cocoon, in the chrysalis, actually like dissolved into a goo that was like unrecognizable. And then from that goo, a butterfly was born. And I mean, I don't know what I thought. I probably thought like the caterpillar grew wings or something, like a second grader. but it is so helpful to know that that's how that actually works. That is what happens in nature in that particular metamorphosis. The caterpillar does not grow wings. The caterpillar dies to its old self, right? Its essence doesn't die, but its understanding of itself, its identity, something changes and it becomes a goo. But from that goo, from that death, there is a beautiful and important rebirth. And so I'm getting such positive vibes from the Death card. I think there is like a permission slip there to allow a metamorphosis to happen in your life. And it's clarified by the Seven of Pentacles in reverse. So what that's telling me is that there might be some like withdrawing of investments that is important. And as I'm saying that, I remember a reading I did a while back, and what kept coming through, something like this. I don't know if I'm going to remember exactly, but something like withdraw investments that are causing resentments or something like that. I definitely feel like that reading is applicable here. So I'll link it up in the description box of this video, but I feel like the same thing wants to be said. The more you're willing to withdraw energetic investments that are causing resentments, the more you're going to allow this natural metamorphosis process to occur, instead of maybe holding it out of fear at sort of like arm's length away. And we often do that unconsciously, right? Until we make it conscious, which is what I love tarot and divination and oracle for, is to help make the unconscious conscious. So maybe after this reading, you'll become more aware of how you're maybe doing that, and then more willing to withdraw investments that are causing resentments. Because I do think to a certain extent, that is blocking a beautiful metamorphosis process that wants to happen, that will allow you to step more powerfully and sustainably into the vein of abundance. And part of the reason I say that is because right below the Death card is the Eight of Pentacles in reverse, clarified by the Tower in reverse. And the vibe that those two cards are giving me in this reading is like a resistance to change, an unconscious resistance to change. So the Tower card, although can be difficult at times, because sometimes, you know, when the towers come in our life, that's sort of the universe taking things away or removing obstacles that maybe we didn't realize were unhealthy. So maybe maybe a relationship or something is built on an unsteady base and we didn't realize it. And then the tower comes in, it kind of like sweeps things away for our benefit. But in the short term, it can be uncomfortable because we don't always know. When we've built something on a base that's not working, right? On a foundation that might have some dysfunction built into it, or a lack of health, right? But in terms of this reading, what I'm getting from the tower in reverse is a resistance to change. Because sometimes the tower shows up in readings and it's this really beautiful card of like change is happening, like breakthroughs, right? So I'm getting like this unconscious resistance to the breakthroughs that you desire. And there's something about like you're turning that inward. I'm getting this from the Eight of Pentacles in reverse. Like you're turning it inward and you're trying to kind of like control everything through fixating on fixing, or like another way to put it would be sort of like perfectionistic tendencies. Okay. And so there's the essence here is a little more of like, if you are able to, I think the key is actually not resisting the change. I was going to say like settle into your being a bit more, be a bit more present versus like, so like a willingness to feel over fixating on fixing, and that presence was talked about in this abundance card. So I was going to say like that will potentially facilitate this transformation. But what I'm actually getting is the more you can surrender to the transformation, to this idea of withdrawing investments that are causing resentments, to this idea that death is a beautiful part of the rebirth process. That fixating on fixing, or that like inward perfectionistic tendency, is going to begin to dissipate naturally more on its own. So I think it's the unconscious resistance to change that is actually more of the problem than the fixating on fixing. I think the fixating on fixing is actually a symptom of the more root problem, which is that resistance to change. And the more that you realize that you're doing this right, not wrong. I feel like sometimes maybe you're resisting change because you, or maybe I'll just speak from my own experience because I feel that something similar was the case on my journey. And that's like, I didn't have a lot of examples of true transformation in my life. And so I didn't realize, / true healing, right? So I didn't realize what the natural process of it was. And so a lot of times when I was doing things right, when I was in the midst of true healing, when I was in the process of true transformation that was leading to more and more abundance, I was judging myself for it because I didn't realize that was part of the process. And I think this reading is really wanting to give you that permission slip, like you're doing this right, not wrong. It's safe to surrender to this process. There is wisdom in the process of healing and transformation, and you're not required to like do it right. You're just required to go through the process, because there really is no right and wrong. But more than that, there is a natural order to healing, right? And it doesn't always follow. It's not always convenient, is it? And it's not always pretty. But it oftentimes, the more we're willing to surrender to those inconveniences and the mess of it all, is the times that we're actually doing it right. And I'm definitely getting that sense for you, in terms of like, you're doing a lot right. You're just judging yourself for it. And so if you're able to like release that judgment and surrender to the process, it's going to just help everything feel better and like paradoxically move more quickly. Even though it's like we can't, there's a lovely song. I'll link it up in the description. It's like, you can't rush your healing. Like we can't rush our healing. We have to let it go through the process. But if we're not resisting its natural process, it doesn't mean like we speed it up inauthentically, right? But because it can go through its natural process, we're not delaying things, right? And so I'm definitely getting that sense here, like the general transformation that you're doing in all areas of your life, specifically your healing, specifically when it comes to relationships, standing up for yourself, so on and so forth, is directly related to your experience of abundance. And so it's for many reasons worth it to do. But if you're wondering, like, is there going to be an ROI in terms of pentacles, in terms of finances? this reading definitely wants you to know, yes, eventually that ROI is protected. It is going to happen. And the key is surrendering to the process of transformation and healing. So with that said, we haven't talked about the Queen of Cups and the Four of Cups in reverse. But I think this one is kind of just highlighting or piggybacking off of this idea of healing. So I think what's being asked of you is to, instead of like drowning in apathy, using that apathy, that depression, that feeling of stuckness to catapult your healing journey and to build your capacity, to build your emotional capacity, to become more and more the dynamic and vibrant, emotionally secure and emotionally intelligent Queen of Cups. And all of this is leading to just a more balanced life experience that I truly can feel will be built on true abundance. And it's like I'm feeling like a compounding abundance essence that's happening. And it's interesting because I was gonna say there's no Pentacles cards, but there are. There's a Seven of Pentacles in reverse and the Eight of Pentacles in reverse. But they're kind of like a withdrawing investments cards, right? There isn't like a Pentacles cards, like a building card. And I think that's because the big message here is that your Pentacles, your money, is related to so many other aspects of your life, right? And that's like a reality. That's a truth that we're not taught in our culture. That we have to tend to the other aspects of our life to really be in the realm of the abundance. It's not just pentacles. And so I think there's this beautiful and huge call for you to give yourself permission to just surrender to the healing process. And as you build that emotional capacity and as you build more and more functional foundations and dynamics, that will directly relate to your experience of financial abundance. So finally, let's talk about the Three of Wands, the Three of Swords in reverse at the bottom of the deck and the Two of Wands. I think that this is speaking to, well, first and foremost, the healing. You know, Three of Swords, upright, it can be a really difficult card of heartbreak. And it's in reverse. And so there's like a couple messages that are coming through with that. And one is like looking at internal heartbreak. So this might not have to do with like relationship heartbreak, although it might, but what's actually coming to me is like where you've broken your own heart, which doesn't typically come through with that. So I think it just might be like regrets that you have where you've maybe broken promises to yourself. And what else is wanting to come through? I guess I think that, yeah, I think it's like, I think it's broken promises to yourself, but also like maybe when you've had to, or you felt you had to disown yourself in order to please another. And I think that kind of relates right back to this Five of Swords energy, right? And isn't it interesting? Five of Swords plus the Three of Swords is the Eight of Swords. And the Eight of Swords is like self-imposed restriction. Eight of Swords is often really difficult energy. It's sort of the opposite of abundance, frankly. And so I think there's something here about, yeah, like looking at where you have broken promises to yourself that ultimately have been heartbreaking to you, that maybe, you know, you didn't realize were heartbreaking at the time because you were putting attachments, bonds, you were putting like maintaining relationship over being who you are. But I think you're at a different point now, and that's what the Two of Wands speaks about. And oh my gosh, and the Queen of Wands under the Two of Wands. Wow, that's so beautiful. So that's what this speaks about. You know, the Two of Wands is like really choosing, you know, choosing yourself, right? And isn't it interesting? We could also look at the Five of Swords minus the Three of Swords, since the Three of Swords is in reverse, which equals the Two of Swords. Two of Swords is also difficult energy of like, I'm not willing to see myself, my choice in the matter here. And I think there's something here about this reading where you are willing now to see your choice in the matter, and you're willing to make different choices, more in alignment with your power and more in alignment with who you actually are. And so, and that's going to be less heartbreaking to yourself. So I said there was two messages with this Three of Swords in reverse. One is that like broken promises to yourself. But I think the other one is do what you need to do to heal your broken heart, different heartbreaks, whether they relate to how you've treated yourself or how someone else has treated you, versus trying to maintain dynamics so you don't have to deal with the heartbreak, right? And let's just take a breath on that. That's not like necessarily easy to hear. I can relate to this, the essence of these, of this story very intimately, where I, was unconscious about how often I was breaking my own heart in order to maintain different relationships, and in big and small ways, and in it did take a lot of healing and a lot of inner work to awaken to that, to withdraw investments that were causing resentments, boundaries, right? Excuse me. Interesting. It's interesting. I got a little tickle in my throat there. If we think about like boundaries are like the throat chakra. Boundaries are where we're actually expressing our essence. We're not just like knowing who we are on the inside and not telling anybody about it, and then maybe like breaking our own heart. We're actually saying, no, this is how I need to be treated, for me to feel okay. So there's like an expression essence to that. And isn't it interesting that Louise Hay called the throat chakra your chakra of change? She often encouraged people to put their hand to their throat and say, I'm willing to change, I'm willing to change, I'm willing to change, which relates beautifully to this death card, doesn't it? But I think the reason, or at least the way I think of it, the reason that she would say that the throat chakra is your energy center of change is until we actually express who we are, there's a resistance to change, isn't there? And so I think as I was saying that, I was saying the boundaries thing, I thought of a Heidi Priebe video, and I watched it a few weeks ago. I think it came out a year or two ago. So it's not new, but it's new to me. And it's like a Boundaries 101 video. And there was one thing she said in there. There were multiple things, but in terms of what I thought of just a few moments ago, was she said that boundaries are discovered, not created. And she didn't really elaborate on it, but it like struck me. So I don't know exactly what she meant by it, but in terms of how I interpreted it, I was like, oh my gosh, we don't get a choice in the matter. Like, we are coded with how we are best intended to operate. And it is our job to discover that, but it's not our job to create that. It really made me think of A Course in Miracles. The introduction to A Course in Miracles is, this is a required course. Free will does not mean that you determine the curriculum. It means you determine how long it takes for you to essentially awaken to the curriculum. So essentially, the way I interpret that is like, Mama God is like, I know what love actually is. And I know what fear is. I know what safety is. I know what danger is. You don't get to say like something that is fear is actually love. Well, you can say that and you can believe it and you can act out of that belief, but you don't actually change the curriculum. Your free will does not lie in changing universal truths. Your free will lies in awakening, how long it takes to awaken to the universal truths, right? And so like in a similar vein, when Heidi said boundaries are discovered, not created, I was like, oh my gosh, something wiser than us coded us with the boundary. So each of us individually with what we need in terms of how to feel safe and how to feel like ourselves. And we can deny that, right? We can break our own hearts, but ultimately, like, we can't change it. So the faster we can wake up to what our boundaries are, the faster we can express that. Again, throat chakra, we can get support in expressing that. We can deal with the discomfort of expressing who we actually are and our boundaries. The more we're like utilizing our free will accurately. And that's making me think of the Two of Wands again, because Wands energy is that initiation willpower energy. It's like the sacred willpower. Like, so much in our culture is like exploiting our willpower for things that it shouldn't be used for, because it's sacred. It's a finite resource, right? But we can use our finite resource to like use our free will accurate, or the way it was intended, which is awaken to some of these universal truths about the universe and innate truths about ourselves. Then we're using that wand energy well. we're using that decision energy well, stepping more and more into our Queen of Wands essence. So, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. I feel like, I wasn't planning on this, but I feel like I want to pull one final card. I'm going to go grab a deck that's calling to me, and I will do that. But before I do, I just want to mention, when I was talking about the free will situation, I have a different channel. It's called Exercise 180, and it's, you know, holistic health, yoga, Pilates videos. But I have some like resources on that channel. One of them is a comprehensive course that I created many years ago. And it is about holistic health, is about living, you know, in a more healthy way. But ultimately it's about how we're using willpower, because I was seeing the Western fitness and health industry just like exploit people in their willpower. They were thinking like, you know, they were trying to get everybody to use their willpower to be quote unquote healthy, while you can't like run your life on that, right? And so I created this course in response to that. And it's not just related to health. It's a much more like comprehensive, holistic course about just like how we're using our willpower. So if any of this is resonating, I will link that course up in the description box. It's totally free. I have it on YouTube. Yes. Okay. But aside from that, I feel like I want to pull one final card. I'll be right back with a new deck. Okay, I'm back. The Soul Trees Oracle deck was calling me. One final message for the viewer, please. At the time they find this video about how to step more and more into the beautiful vein of abundance. Whoa. Okay, 2 wanted to come out. 3. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, you can't make this up. Look at that. Oh my gosh. These readings just blow me away. So abundance comes out. Oh my gosh, you can't make that up. Thank you so much for being here. I just like love doing these readings so much. Thank you for tuning in. I hope, I hope the messages that come through are helpful. I just find these readings to be so uplifting for me, so synchronistic. I just love it. Okay. Wow. So you can't make this up. So this is just like a beautiful summary. Obviously, abundance at the center, very poignantly letting us know that Mama God knows what this reading is about. But I also think it's just like a beautiful validation that you're on the right track. You're on the right track. And look, it's a combination of release and purpose that is required. And I mean, that's just like a beautiful way to sum up the energy of this reading, release and purpose. Because what do we talk about here? Looking at the relationship dynamics that are not working, withdrawing investments that are causing resentment, releasing that instead of like avoiding the heartbreak, it's like releasing the heartbreak by healing and by more and more, purpose, by not breaking promises to yourself and being yourself, becoming more this strong person full of capacity in terms of your cups energy, which is your emotionality, strong person in terms of your wands energy, which is your initiation and your drive, really allowing yourself to go through the process of transformation so you more and more can step into your true and abundant purpose. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the incredible work that you're doing on yourself, for yourself, and for the collective.